Man, that was disappointing. I walked away feeling disappointed in LaRussell for a couple of reasons. If you don't know the hottest new thing in media right now, we're talking about LaRussell's comments. He's obviously been in the media the last few days or weeks, for some good, but now it's kind of taken a turn for the worse. If you don't know Russell, he's a North Cal artist, Viejo. Is it Vallejo or Viejo? Anyways, a North Cal artist, right? Independent. He's been getting it out the mud from 3 to 4 years, probably longer than that. But if you know anything about the independent, grind, it is just that. It is a grind. You don't have any label backing. You don't have any, major names behind you. You don't have any, source of, guaranteed income. Everything you make is what you earned. You know what I mean? So shouts out to him. Again, that's not an easy thing to do. And to make your way from independent artists, right, to being at the table making deals with Rock Nation, Jay-Z, you know what I mean? That's a huge thing to do. So shouts out to them for that. But, a lot of the news recently hasn't even been about that. It's just been about these comments. So let's go ahead and listen to, the clip that's going viral. If you do have time, please go ahead and, find a full interview, or at least listen to a few minutes prior to the clip and a few minutes after the clip cuts to try to get a greater understanding of, just the context of the conversation itself to, give LaRussell as much grace as possible. Let's go ahead and take a listen.
He like all of Wayne.
Hilarious.
Fuck Wayne.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things he said.
He said a lot. We won't repeat.
He said a lot. We won't repeat.
Who was it?
Our
Our ex-nephew.
I don't even know.
He has his own truth.
Yeah,
I gotta respect it.
He had a conviction.
I had a moment in my journey where I had grew a disdain for Wayne just because I started listening to everything. Like I started maturing as a human, and I'm like, damn, this nigga wasn't talking about nothing for a long time. And
I think that's what his argument was.
As someone who like grew up in these communities,
right,
and grew up with homies who I seen want to be bloods because they following Wayne and want to be gangster and want to shoot all the gun bar and shit.
Right.
Like I've seen the negative that he contributed to the community, and I had to look like, man, what are the songs where he really talked about something and gave? And out of 1,000-song catalog, it's minute on this end.
It's like Georgia Bush.
And that do bother you.
Okay. So again, I walked away from the clip feeling disappointed in LaRussell. But before, everybody's starting to bash him, obviously, the clip sounds crazy. The clip sounds crazy. But so basically from what I can make out is, these hosts or whatever, they have someone that they know who does not like Wayne. And that kind of ushers in, the next conversation of how LaRussell at one point or now or whenever, after he had grown and all of this, he listened back to Wayne and he's basically saying how the substance isn't there. He's not feeling it. He's not seeing it. And then he goes on and he says, and once I look at all of the negative things, like I've seen homies, want to be gang members all of a sudden after, placing that at Wayne's feet and all of the negative contributions to our communities versus all of the, the good things that Wayne has contributed. And it just doesn't add up. Like that's essentially, the clip that's going viral. That's what you're going to see. And again, face value, that is crazy. That is disgusting. That is disappointing. Right. The first thing that I always want to say is, how are we talking about our OGs, right? How are we discussing our legends, right? If you're a hip hop artist, how are you talking about your legends at all times? How are you letting others around you talk about legends? Because, again, this whole thing this conversation kind of ushered in because somebody close to the podcast host doesn't like Wayne. Which is fine. That's cool. That's their opinion. But when I look at a podcast or a group of people who are not of my culture, right? I'm a black man, staying with black culture, and they're spreading their opinions on black culture. Nigga, who are you? I don't care. That's my first, interpretation. Who are you? I don't care about you. I don't care about your friend. I don't care about none of y'all. Y'all go over there and y'all talk about people in your culture then, right? You go start a podcast and y'all can talk about whoever y'all want to of y'all culture. But before y'all open your motherfucking mouth and talk about people over here, that should be met with some sort of resistance, in my opinion, right? If you are in our culture. And so the fact that, Mike should have been, pushed off. Cord should have been pulled out right when shit got disrespectful. Because again, I don't know these hosts. I don't know what they're about. I don't know their musical background. But again, people in your culture start getting disrespected in front of you. In my opinion, that shit got to be checked. So when I say I'm disappointed, and again, we can get into the other reasons, but the fact that a hip hop legend, and you're the only hip hop artist on this podcast, right? If one of our legends is sitting there being disrespected, talked down upon, any of that, it should be checked. And it ain't gotta be I'm gonna stand up and walk off, I'm gonna stand up and put hands on somebody. But in somehow, some way, it gotta be checked right on the spot. So the fact that it wasn't, and in fact, you kind of jumped in and started talking negatively on one of our legends, again, just stacks up on the disappointment, right? So this person doesn't like Wayne. You jump in. Yeah, and I kind of felt this way about Wayne too, because I listened in his. Okay, that's cool. But yeah, when you talk about somebody of this magnitude who does have a 30-year career, by the way, just be prepared to, have some of the backlash that you have. Number two on the list, let this be a lesson. Again, LaRussell is a newer act. I'm not going to call him a little kid, none like that. He's a newer act, going from a small market, which, North Cal is, compared to a New York or compared to Atlanta or compared to even LA. Musically, it's a smaller artist. Maybe you could pull up, and get some shit off, have a little slick comment here and there, and it gets no traction when you just, small town artist. But once you decide to go from that to the big leagues, again, you are now connected in some way to Jay-Z. You are connected to Rock Nation. Shit like this is going to get clipped up. And again, I already know folks is going to spin the block and it's going to be, I got taken out of context. You try to clip me up. You're trying to make it seem. I already know that's going to happen. But let this just be a lesson, man. You are now connected to a staple of hip hop history, of the wider scale thing. Gotta just be a little bit more media savvy, man. Gotta be a little bit. And I'm not saying you gotta be, extra politically correct and all of that, but damn, you gotta be a little bit more, savvy than to jump in on the hate train, if you will. But then next, that just, kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Not gonna lie. Gotta call it out. But when LaRussell was like, man, I'm a fan, or I was a fan, and now, you're a fan, but you gave an ultimate casual take, right? If you're a fan, I just have a different expectation for you than if you're a casual. If you're a casual, just say that. If I don't really listen to him at all right, say that. That's cool. And if you say I'm a casual, or if I don't really listen to him at all, but I think XYZ, I'm probably going to say, well, maybe you need to shut the hell up and go do some research before you talk, right? But if you say I'm a fan, I'm expecting you to know everything that you're about to open your mouth and speak about, right? And the fact that you open your mouth and spoke lies, again, now you're about to end up with the pushback, with the backlash that you're receiving. Because if you're saying you're a fan, I expect you to know about the whole album that was about to get put out that, got leaked. So therefore Wayne had to pivot and he put that whole entire album out as just a mixtape. Things like something you forgot, which is a very substance type of record. I'm Me, so it's a very substance type of record. Those were on that. But then Wayne, being from New Orleans, right following Katrina, was very critical of local government officials. George Bush, the acting president, very vocal during those times where, his people were hurting. I expect you to know that. The Georgia, I expect you to know that if you are a real fan. I expect you to know about Hustler's music. I expect you to know about he mentioned Tie My Hands. I'll give him that one. But I expect you to know some of these things before you open your mouth and say shit like that. Because you're talking about a land's legacy. 30 years is nothing to just, I'm going to summarize that up. Yeah, you ain't talking about nothing. And you're harmful for our community. And the reason why that bothered me is because on a day where not the day, but in a moment where you're signing to Jay-Z, someone who has, and I ain't even trying to shit on Jay-Z, but someone who has been a known drug dealer in the 80s and has bragged about being a drug dealer in the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, and now the 2020s. You've signed to him. You've taken multiple pictures. You've been giving the thumbs up. You're cheesing ear to ear. Yeah, you're in business with that man who sold drugs, which is very harmful for our community, is it not? You're from North Cal. I've been there in the nighttime. Is it not zombie land when you're downtown with motherfuckers off drugs? Is that not happening? Oh, but I get it. You're over there. You're making money. Okay, we're not going to talk about that over there. But somebody else, I could be extra critical about your contributions, if any, by the way, if any, because to place niggas joining gangs at the feet and fault of Lil Wayne when you're in California is insane to me. Insane to me. But I digress. But anyways, to summarize this, man, let's just be real focused on how we are talking about our legends, our OGs, people that we respect, people who have paved ways, or at least if they ain't done anything of that nature for you, people who provided entertainment for moments in our life. It could have been yesterday, it could have been 10 years from now, could have been 20 years ago. If that individual created music that you dance to, that you high five to, that you sat around and you played at parties, and they interjected some amount of joy into your life, how about we just respect them for that and not tear down and not speak ill upon their legacy after the fact? Let's just do that. Because at the end of the day, if we don't respect our legends, if we don't respect our OGs, who do we think is going to do it? Just my opinion, though. Y'all get in the comments. Y'all let me know how this was taken out of context. Are we looking at this the wrong way? Or he's 100% right. He didn't say anything. Yeah, y'all know how y'all gonna get it off. Go ahead, though. Let me know what y'all think. All right, man. Peace.